So recently I was doing my yearly rewatch of Wreck-It Ralph when something occurred to me. Why is Sonic here? The other characters made sense, but Sonic seemed off. At least before the creation of this video, I barely knew anything about Sonic arcade games. My knowledge went as far as knowing what Sonic the Fighters was, but turns out Sonic arcade games have been a thing for almost as long as the Blue Blur himself. And the number of games we'll be talking about might surprise some of you. So before we start this video, I want to apologize to myself in advance for the potential length of this video. Run! Okay, so when it comes to thinking about Sonic and his role in the arcade game industry, it's nothing I really have to explain, unless you have no clue what an arcade game is. But at that point, just use everybody's best friend, Google. But what I should mention is that surprisingly, a lot of Sonic arcade games introduce characters or concepts that we would eventually see return to the series, like Ray and Mighty. Anyways, we have a long list of games, so let's just start from the top. Strangely enough, the first two Sonic games we'll be talking about is just an arcade port of Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. Yeah. So I actually had no clue about these two games having arcade ports until my good buddy Xpool brought it up. But yeah, Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 have their own respective ports from their Sega Genesis titles. For Sonic 1, the Mega Play or arcade version has a large number of differences from the Mega Drive game. The player only has 3 lives to complete the game, and extra lives cannot be earned, and breaking a 1-up monitor in the game will award 5,000 points instead. Continues are increased by inserting credits after a game over. There are also only 4 zones: Green Hill Zone, Spring Yard Zone, Starlight Zone, and Scrap Brain Zone, which is also missing its 3rd act. Yeah, I don't think this is a negative for most people. Labyrinth Zone can go to hell. Special stages are also missing, and jumping into giant rings only causes Sonic to disappear. Therefore, you can't collect any Chaos Emeralds. Upon losing all your lives or completing the game, you can also submit your initials on a high score screen that is presented. Each level has its own time limit, which is closely adhered to. You'll lose a life and the timer will reset if your level isn't finished within the set amount of time given to you. Later though, as a component of Sega Age's Sonic the Hedgehog, the Mega Play arcade version of the game was made available for the Nintendo Switch. Sonic 2, although similar, has a drastic number of differences, but less than the Mega Play arcade version of Sonic 1 did. In the one-player mode, neither 50,000 points nor 100 rings will award the player with an extra life, and all 1-up monitors are replaced with Super Ring monitors instead. You only get awarded a single 1-up at 30,000 points in order to make the game more difficult for the arcade experience. You also don't need to worry about time restrictions, and the HUD no longer displays a timer. In contrast to Sonic 1's Mega Play version, all zones are present. I mean, I could have gone without Metropolis Zone, honestly. Also, no Circle of Stars will emerge when passing checkpoints, which means that special stages are also absent. Even though no Chaos Emeralds can be acquired, you will always get the good ending with Super Sonic after defeating the final boss. Additionally, there isn't a high score table shown after the credits, but Sonic 2's 2-player mode is also available. By adding 2 credits, 1 for each player, and hitting the 2-player start button, the 2-player versus mode selection is available. Extra lives cannot be obtained from monitors like they can in the single-player mode. And that about does it for arcade games that are just direct ports of actual Sonic titles. Our next few games on the list I'd actually like to put together, as they all fall under the same category under the SegaSonic series. A bunch of games which are pretty similar and pretty different at the same time. So first up on our list, we have SegaSonic Bros. Although the title sounds very familiar to an Italian plumber's iconic series, this game has nothing to do with platforming, and rather this is a puzzle game. SegaSonic Bros. Has players creating lines and loops using different colored Sonics. Creating a line can be done by connecting Sonics at the same color across, diagonally, above, and below one another. Pieces drop from the top of the board in groups of 4, with the colors randomly mixing after each drop. The objective is to eliminate as many pieces on the board at once as possible. A bonus is awarded when the entire board is cleared, which multiplies the score depending on how big of a combination was performed. At every 10 levels, the player is awarded a Chaos Emerald. Once the Chaos Emerald lands on the board, it will eliminate everything above and on the same plane as it. Once you reach level 30, a 4th colored Sonic is introduced: white. The game continues until the board is completely full and there is no more room to drop further pieces, or until you reach the maximum score of 9,999,990 points, or level 99. Which, by the way, why would you even be playing this game? Go play Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, what is wrong with you? In any case, your clear time will be displayed on the high score table, and that about does it for SegaSonic Bros. Next up in the SegaSonic series, SegaSonic Cosmo Fighter. So, cool thing about SegaSonic Cosmo Fighter, although yes, being an actual arcade game, it was also a little bit of a kiddie ride which you could actually go inside of. The cabinet is designed like a spaceship, with one of the features being the entire vehicle shaking during the ride. The cabinet board has 2 buttons for weapons to fire projectiles or homing rockets, and a lever labeled speed up which tilts the entire ride. There is also a regular joystick on the left side of the board that maneuvers the ship, which can also tilt the cabinet. Now this game also features voice acting, interestingly enough. But is it just me, or did they switch Sonic and Eggman's voice actors? Take a listen.
Hi, my name is Sonic.
There you are, Sonic. If you want to rescue your friends, you'll have to down me first.
However, going back to the gameplay itself, it's somewhat reminiscent of Galaga, though without the rows of enemy ships along the top of the screen. Instead, either a row of ships or just one lone enemy will appear from the left of the ride to attack Sonic with lasers. You must press one of the cabinet's buttons to fire Sonic's twin laser cannon at the enemies, destroying them with just one hit. If you manage to defeat Robotnik's space armor, you get rewarded with a ship upgrade, and Sonic will complete his mission and save the animal friends while Eggman flies away. Depending on how well the ride has been completed, you'll be rewarded with a rating from 1 to 5 stars. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I get 5 stars every time. I mean, I can't speak on the behalf of others, but you know, for myself, of course, I always get 5 stars. Now, with Sonic going from space defeating hero, he gets a bit more grounded in this next game, which is Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car. So, Sonic is a cop now. Thankfully, he doesn't take advantage of his newfound power. Like the last game, it's a kiddie ride, like Cosmo Fighter. In the ride, you control Sonic, who takes the role of a police officer. He gives an introductory speech and jumps onto a round patrol car for a daily patrol routine. At the beginning of the patrol, you have to avoid making collisions with other cars in traffic and dodge animal friends on a pedestrian crossing. Getting hit by car causes the police car to rotate for a small amount of time while you lose control. After a short period of time, Dr. Robotnik appears in a red vehicle and begins making a traffic offense by throwing small bombs at Sonic.
Like to throw little nails in the street, and an accident happens,
which will have the same effect as colliding with other cars. You then must activate the siren and pursue the doctor while destroying his vehicle by spin jumping onto it a few times before the ride ends. If you succeed, Robotnik's vehicle will explode. The villain then escapes and Sonic returns to the police station where he thanks you for driving. And once more, depending on how well you avoided the cars and Dr. Robotnik's bomb, the kiddie ride rewards you with a certain amount of stars from 1 to 5. And of course, as always, I get 5 stars, and even that, I have proof. The next game on our long list is SegaSonic Cotton Candy Scramble. It is an arcade vending machine. The vending machine would have dispensed cotton candy, presumably, when the game was completed. Much like the more well-known SegaSonic Popcorn Shop, which we'll get to in a second, the arcade cabinet would have also contained a game featuring Sonic and Tails during the cotton candy preparation. I haven't seen any actual gameplay of this arcade machine online, considering it was only presented to the public once during the Japanese amusement machine show back in 1994, and it did not receive a very wide release. But we have this picture of the machine. And that's about it. Moving on, like previously mentioned, SegaSonic Popcorn Shop is also another arcade vending machine. This machine, however, vends popcorn to you rather than cotton candy. I mean, what else is it gonna give you? Chocolate? Although there are some images of the machine on screen, and with keeping these images in mind, SegaSonic Popcorn Shop did get a release to the public, so there is actual footage from gameplay, and even this super awesome guy playing the machine and getting popcorn. Gameplay wise, you just get this small little minigame where Tails places a popcorn kettle on the conveyor belt, which Sonic initiates, making it move to the right. Dr. Robotnik then appears and reverses the belt, so Sonic grabs the kettle and runs down the treadmill while the doctor chases him with a sledgehammer to hit him with. You can turn the green crank to make Sonic run faster while avoiding Eggman. If Sonic gets too close to Dr. Robotnik, he jumps forward to dodge the sledgehammer on his own. Don't worry, you don't get robbed of any popcorn. I mean, my friend did, but that's not relevant. On a completely unrelated note, popcorn anyone? Following up on the list, we have SegaSonic the Hedgehog. This one might be another one of the more recognized Sonic arcade games. This game is a platforming game with 3 characters who share identical controls and abilities. These characters are Sonic, Ray, and Mighty, the latter 2 who see this as their first appearance in the Sonic series and wouldn't make a return until the 2018 Sonic Mania DLC with Mania Plus. They're all controlled with one action button which lets you perform a spin jump and a trackball which is used to move the characters around. I don't know who decided that a trackball was a good idea for this game's movement, but whoever developed the controls for this game, the dude thought he was working on Super Monkey Ball. Anyways, the game is centered entirely around running as fast as possible on the course from a never-ending barrage of threats, including a giant boulder, lava flows, rogue gears, falling stalactites, and other traps. When you get hit by a dangerous obstacle or hazard, you'll lose health from the huge health gauge, but it can be refilled by collecting rings that are found within the arena. Upon completing each level, the game tallies up how many rings were grabbed. Extra points are also received if over half of the level's rings were found. The game only has a few enemies and one boss that appears midway through the game. At the end of the final level, you are given 20 seconds to escape from the self-destructing tower. If you make it out of the tower successfully, you can watch the ending credits. Failing to do so will result in a game over, and you will not be allowed to use a continue as the game states, "You failed," with Dr. Eggman laughing off screen. Now, if you don't like Dr. Eggman laughing in your face, boy do I got the solution for you. I don't like your attitude, bitch. Sonic the Fighters is the next arcade game on our list. This game is a 3D fighting game with a gameplay similar to Sega's AM2 Fighting Vipers and Virtua Fighter 2, as the game was built on the engine of the former. Two characters brawl from a dynamically shifting 2D view in a 3D arena, each using a variety of attacks and maneuvers to gain the better of the other player. The rounds are timed, and if both characters are still standing when the timer reaches 0, the player with the most health is chosen as the winner. The cast of playable characters is Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Espio, Bean, Bark, and Fang. Also, fun fact, Bean and Bark would also see this as their first appearance in the Sonic series, as well until their first reappearance in Sonic Mania as a cameo. There isn't really too much more I can say for this game, but I might return for a full-fledged video. Next up on our list is the famous mobile game Sonic Dash Extreme. Now, what makes this game so extreme, you may ask? Well, nothing. I mean, it's the same game, it's just not free. This thing popped up in selected places across the United Kingdom in May of 2015. The arcade version also features daily and all-time leaderboards. The game is very similar to the original mobile phone game, but with several altered features. When starting the game, one of the playable characters is chosen randomly. Also, instead of using touchpad controls, the arcade cabinet features a large D-pad. By pressing left or right on this D-pad, the player can move their playable character sideways to avoid obstacles on the route, while pressing up on the D-pad and pressing down on the D-pad can also make you perform the spin jump and the spin dash respectively. The arcade game awards prizes in the form of redemption tickets, which the player gets after passing the checkpoints between small sections. After passing through the last checkpoint, the player gets a ring depending on the number of tickets and rings the player has collected. After that, the player faces Dr. Eggman and his Eggmobile in a boss battle like in the original Sonic Dash. However, the way of defeating him is different. After being bounced into the air by springs, you have to lock on and press down on the D-pad to dash into one of the Eggmobile's missile launchers 3 times. If you fail to do so, you will lose the game. Also, before we keep moving in the video, if you find yourself enjoying what you've seen so far, a like and sub is always appreciated. Next up is Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing Arcade. It's another Sonic title that gets condensed into an arcade style. All-Stars Racing Arcade is a stripped-down version of the original game with all content removed, save for a simplified Grand Prix, single race, and time trial modes. Unlike the home versions, the gameplay is time-limited, similar to previous Sega racing games. Only 13 characters and 13 tracks are included, and there are a number of minor graphical changes. The roster of characters are Sonic, Tails, Amy, Shadow, Dr. Eggman, I, Billy Hatcher, Amigo, Ooh-La-La, Beady Joe, Ryo Hazuki, Jackie Bryant, and Akira Yuki. Also, you are crazy if you think I'm gonna list out all the stages. The last thing I should mention is this game controls like any generic racing arcade game, having you pretend to drive while holding a wheel. Pedals and all. We finally made it. The last 3 Sonic arcade games. We're almost there. Next up, we have Sonic Athletics. There are 8 screen-facing treadmill stations based on each playable character. Players compete by running on the treadmills in 3 different events: 100-meter dash, long jump, and lastly 110-meter hurdles. The speed of the playable character in events depends on the player's running, meaning that a character will run faster if their player runs faster on the treadmill too. Each station also features a jump button for events, so you don't actually need to jump. Trust me, running alone in itself is enough. Second to last is Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Now you may say to yourself at this point, VMeg, what the fuck? Why are you talking about Mario? Well, because Sonic is in it. I mean, isn't that why some of us watched Wreck-It Ralph? I mean, that was my reason. In any case, this game was very similar to the actual main game title, but this version of the game is very different to its Wii U and Nintendo 3DS counterparts. Being controlled by 2-foot D-pads on the floor and 2 big red levers, many events from the main game return, such as a 100-meter sprint, long jump, hammer throw, 100-meter freestyle swimming, javelin throw, and a few more. Although this game was very closely similar to the actual Wii U and 3DS title, in preparation for the next Olympic Games event, Sega released Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 Arcade Edition, which will also be the final game on our list. Like previously stated, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Tokyo 2020 Games is the same game as the Nintendo Switch title with the same name. As with the Nintendo Switch version, the game features events from both 2020 as well as the 2D events from the 1964 Summer Olympics, which were also held in Tokyo. For the 2020 event, there are 100-meter sprint, discus throw, gymnastics, rugby, sports climbing, surfing, swimming, and triple jump. For the 1964 events, we have 10-meter platform, 110-meter hurdles, shooting, and pole vault. So, although there are a lot of events in this game, I think this game for sure will be able to proclaim itself as the best version of this arcade title. And with that, I think it would be a good time to mention that we finally reached the end of our list. Genuinely, before going into a video about Sonic arcade games, I had no idea how much research and effort I was going to have to put into making a video like this. So although there are a lot of Sonic arcade games, some being more strange than others, I definitely think this is one piece of Sonic's history that might get overlooked a lot more than you think. Hey, and welcome to the end of the video. Socials to my Twitter, Twitch, Discord will all be in the description down below if that interests you. Huge thank you to all my members of the channel. Thank you so much for even giving me a dime. And if you guys want to have your name at the end of the videos, or you want to just be a member and show support in another way, go ahead and press the blue join button right next to the subscribe button, which, by the way, the subscribe button is free, so you should totally press it. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.